today? No, we're about to get better. Okay, guys, so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Ms. Gaffrey. We actually have a unique opportunity today. This was brought to us. We are the first school in Los Angeles Unified to be able to be part of this Holocaust speaker series. Our director brought this opportunity to me, and then I'm going to introduce Mr. Monroe High in a minute, but this is what he does in retirement. He organizes these speakers to go to different schools. So this is the first Los Angeles Unified School, and we got that. So you're extra lucky. So I'm going to hand off the microphone to Mr. Monroe.
Thank you. We are really glad to be at Monroe High School, which we've heard is one of the best high schools around. Yeah, I think so. Especially from last period, it shows when you are being attentive and you're not distracted and you understand what we're talking about. I've been working with Holocaust speakers for the past 6 years. Actually, my parents and my grandparents survived the Holocaust. But today, you're very lucky to have our speaker today. Mr. Alexander has spoken throughout Burbank, Glendale, and all of Southern California, and even around the world. He has presented his story in a compelling way that really is unique even among Holocaust survivors. So, Joseph Alexander was put in a concentration camp starting when he was 16 years old. Very close to your age, if not your age. So we're talking about being taken away and being put in a concentration camp. So without further ado, it's my honor to present Joseph Alexander.
Thank you, David. My name is Joseph Alexander. I don't know.
I'm sorry. Oh, we turned it off when you were talking.
Oh,
Yes.
no, but I turned it back on.
All the way to the left?
I turned it on.
Yeah. Okay.
Technology. Not as strong.
Here, let's switch for now. While we figure out what's going on.
Okay.
Testing. So let's switch over to this while we bring the tech guys to look into the mic.
Oh, my name is Joseph Alexander. I'm a Holocaust survivor from Poland, and I survived 12 camps. I come from a small town in Poland. I had a family, I had parents, I had 3 sisters, 2 brothers, and I'm the only survivor. We lived and we had a very good life. Very nice life. My father was in business and we were doing very good. Until 1939, when the Germans came into Poland, they divided Poland in 2 parts. One half of Poland was annexed to the Third Reich to Germany. The second part was Poland under German occupation. Their life was going on almost normal. But after a few weeks, they came to our town, and most of the cities have a town square, which, for instance, let's say this is the town square, and we lived the second house from this corner. And the third house was an uncle of mine, came in a few weeks after my uncle, and they went around the square, and they gave the people 10 minutes to get their possessions and get out in the middle of the square. They get out in the square, and they took them away. After that, a rumor started that they're going to come back 3 days later and take the rest of us. So my dad had 3 sisters living right under Warsaw, about 25 kilometers before Warsaw, in a small town named Blonia. So Dad said, we're not going to wait for them to come and give us 10 minutes. So he got a deep wagon. In Europe, we had deep wagons, about 6-8 feet deep. And we picked up most of the stuff from the store, and you put a few pieces of bedding and a couple pieces of furniture on top, because from our part to the other part, you had to go through a border. So put some few household goods on the top that we were moving. And we moved to the town before Warsaw. Came there, and life was going on almost normal, but everybody has to work. Everybody has to go to work. So being there just for a few weeks, I went to my first camp. It was 1939. And late October, beginning of November. So I went to a camp where you work during the week, and the weekend you can go home. But the work we were doing is we were building a canal where you would dig in, staying in the water, almost up to the knee, without boots. And that was the end of October, beginning of November, and this in Europe, that's a winter time already. So after a few months, I got blood poisoning, my arms and my legs, and I went home on the weekend, and I said, I'm not coming back. On Monday morning, the police came to look for me, and my dad said, he's not here, he's supposed to be in the camp. So I stayed away from home for a few weeks until it figured to cool off. And that was a time when, I don't know if you heard about the Warsaw Ghetto. That's the time where they were building the wall where the ghetto was going to be. And after they built the wall, and that was a very small place they built, and they put in about 265,000 people in a very small area. So the life there, it was miserable. People were dying every day, and it was unbelievable what was going on. But back home, since we left, nothing changed. Everything remained the same. So my parents decided for an older sister and a younger brother and myself, we should go back home. To go back home, we had to get out of the ghetto, so we had to pay off the guards at the gate to get out. We got out, and we decided I take one street, and my sister and my brother take another street, and we walk through town, and we'll meet on the outskirts of town. I walked for about a couple of blocks, and a Polish teenager comes over and he said, give me some money or I'm going to report you. So I gave him some money, I thought I got rid of it. After
sorry. I'm out.
Yeah, okay. So, and I thought they gave me some money, they got rid of it. And I kept walking. But he got from the street car, he rode the street car for a couple of blocks, and got out, and comes over again the second time, give me some more money. So this time, I gave him some more money, and I changed street, and I lost it. I walked to the outskirts of town, and I met my sister and brother, and we went home. So we went home. So we came home, and like I said, everything was, since we left, nothing changed. But it lasted 3 days for me. After being there for 3 days, they said, older man from 16 to 60, report to the schoolhouse. So I reported to the school and was taken away to the camps. So I kept going to the camp, and there were different camps. I was working to build, first I was working in a camp where I was building a dam. And the work was a very hard work. That was what we were doing is cutting down hills and loading up some little trains, electric trains, who go, you fill them up in one place and you take it to another place and you dump it. It was such a hard work that we had to use picks to loosen up the ground. Like. And the food you were getting was a piece of bread like this in the morning, and a cup of coffee, and you went to work. We worked with civilians. If you could organize to get some extra food, you could survive. Otherwise, you couldn't survive. People were dying every day. They were taking dead people out from the camp, from the barracks. So the camp was getting small, and the same thing, we were surrounded by a city named Poznań, one of the largest cities in Poland. And there were a lot of sub-camps around the city. So the same thing happened in other camps, so they combined 2 or 3 camps into one. After a while, the same thing happened at this camp. So that's why I kept moving from camp to camp. I always managed to get some extra food, something extra, so I could survive. And after being in several camps, I was working, building a dam, building an airport, the railroad tracks. I was working the sewers, laying cobblestones on the street. I was a roofer, all kind of jobs, all kind of different jobs. And after being in 7 camps, train arrived, and we got on the train, and you know, it wasn't a passenger train, it was a cattle car train, where you put 40, 50 people in one boxcar. And the destination we were going, it takes maybe 5, 6 hours at the most. We were riding around for 3 days, with no food, no water, no facility, nothing. So by the time we arrived at our destination was Auschwitz. And I don't know how many of you know what Auschwitz is. Auschwitz was called a death camp. It was bad enough just to know to go to Auschwitz. And then we arrived in Auschwitz. Then when we came, they didn't have the trains going into the camp. They built this later. So the train stopped. There's a little town named Oswiecim, and it's 6 kilometers to the camp. When we arrived, we got off the train. About 30–40% of the people were dead on the train already. We got off, and we were lined up in rows of 5, and we met Dr. Mengele, Dr. Joseph Mengele. He was called the Doctor of Death. He selects people for human experiment or to the gas chamber. So he said there's 6 kilometers to the camp. So he selected people, what he called, to go to the left. Those people on the left are going to be taken on trucks. And selected me to go to the left. And I look around and I see old people, sick people, young kids. I said, no, this is not the kind of people I like to be with. Because if I would come from home, I wouldn't know the difference. But I was already in 7 camps. In every camp, we had to go to war as I was trying to get in with the biggest, strongest men. So here he tells me to go here and see old sick people and old people. I said, no. My luck was, it was after midnight. If it would have been daytime, I don't think I could have done it. As he moved further down, I ran back to the other side. If I didn't run back to the other side, I wouldn't be here talking to you. Because the people on the left were taken on truck, went straight to the gas chamber. Then I walked to the camp, to Auschwitz. Came to Auschwitz, I got a shower, and I came out of the shower. And I got a tattoo, I got a number. From that moment on, that was your name. You had no name anymore. That was your name. And you walked, there's 2 hours to Auschwitz and there's Birkenau. They're about 3 kilometers apart. And you walked over to Birkenau. I was in Birkenau for a while, and I saw Dr. Mengele 2 more times in Birkenau, but it was daytime, and I was far away from him. But several times they said they want some people to go to work. So, but we didn't trust them. Friends of mine and myself, we were hiding, we didn't report, because we didn't trust them. But camp was getting small. They were taking people out, and at the time they didn't bring any people in. So I was trying to get out there, to get any transport, something. So they came up and they said one time they needed tailors. So my whole family, my grandfather, my father were tailors. I report, and they come in front of me. Okay, cut off. You go back. We have enough. We don't need any more. So I'm still back in the camp. And that was the time, if you heard about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. That was the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising that was in April of 1943. So after that, they said they need a big transport, but they don't want to take any people from Poland. only from Hungary, Greece, and so forth, other countries. But in the end, they were short about 300 people. They said, we'll take some people now from North Poland. So I report, and the same thing, you get on the train, same thing, you're riding around for 3 days again with nothing to do. No food, no wood, no water, nothing. And we arrived in Warsaw. So for me, I was going back for the second time to Warsaw. After the Get Uprising, all the buildings were burned out. There were no buildings left, just some walls, remaining walls. And we supposed to take these walls down brick by brick, clean them up, and put them up in stacks of 8-10 feet high. So, and that was the time when we came back, there was no plan. There was nothing, no building. They gave us some prefab, and we had to put together our own barracks. But in the meantime, the clothes we were wearing, I was wearing a shirt, there was no shirt left. There were shreds, were eaten up from lice. So after that, the typhus broke out. So people were getting the typhus. Typhus is you get a high temperature, high fever. If you reported to the hospital, that was the end. Nobody ever came out. I got it, but I didn't report to the hospital because I had a couple. We called a couple which was like a foreman, And he was also a prisoner. He was a German middle-aged man, but he was a prisoner. So he didn't care if we worked or didn't work. So when I got the fever, I didn't report, and I was sitting behind those bricks, those stacks of bricks, like that for about 2 or 3 days until I got over it. And after that, the Polish underground tried to free our camp. So they were fighting all night. They were unsuccessful. So the next morning, they took us out, and we had the job to get out of the city because they were afraid maybe we'll get attacked in the city. So we got out of the city. They brought us to a field, a big field where the farmers graze their cows, and the ground is very moist. So when they put us up on that farm down field, any means you had, a knife, a spoon, whatever you can dig up some mud. So we dug up some mud, you took the bottom of your shirt, you squeezed it, mud, to get a little water. So we got a little water, and the next morning we were walking, come to a city, there was a river. So they let us go to the river to get some water. 2 of our people went a little further into the river. They thought maybe they're going to escape, get out on the other side. They got shot in the river. So we got some water, and then, okay, we start walking again. So we walked again, we come to the next town, where the same river. But at that time, they said the only 100 people at the time can go to the river to get some water. So we got some water and started walking. And that day was a very heavy rain. We were soaking wet, walking in the rain wet, until we arrived at a railroad station. Stayed overnight. The next morning, train arrived, and we got on the train, and the same thing, we're riding around, and That time we were riding around, I remember, for 3.5 days without food or water or anything. And we arrived in Germany. So when we went to Germany, to a camp named Dachau. Dachau was the first camp Hitler built in 1933 for political prisoners. Then he turned it into a concentration camp with the gas chambers. So I went to Dachau. I was in Dachau for about 2 weeks doing nothing because they were establishing about 12 camps by numbers, from 1 to 12, within the surrounding area of Dachau, within 50, 60 kilometers. So first I was sent out to camp number 1, and I was working for a farmer digging potatoes. So that lasted about 3 weeks. And after this, I was sent to another camp number 7, in the city of Landsberg am Lech, about 50 kilometers from Munich, or Dachau. And there came a small camp with only about 150 people, but there was a group of us, small group, while we were in the camps already over 4 years. So we had the privilege of getting the better jobs. And that was the only camp I was, with the women were in the same camp, but they were cut off by one corner of the camp by barbed wire. And we went together to work together. So my friends, they got the better jobs, they got the kitchen working, police, and I got a group of 10 people, 5 girls and 5 boys. We worked in the kitchen right outside the camp for the guards, for the German guards. And there were 2 German men in charge of the kitchen, but they weren't the regular army. So, but they were very nice, very good, because every day I was going back to the camp after work. I took some food back for my friends. Then we had some food left over. I took the big milk cans, put it in the milk can. In the morning, people were going to work. They passed by our kitchen, so I stopped and gave some food. A couple of times, the officer in charge complained if I'm holding up the people going to work. So my people were saying, tell them, don't worry, let them talk, don't worry about it. But that lasted for a while, until 1945, on April 28, all these 12 camps, we all had to go back to Dachau. We went back to Dachau and stayed overnight. And the next morning, we went what they called a dead march. They're supposed to take us into the mountains in Germany. There's a ski resort named Garbage Parkplatz, and kill us there. But we started walking. We knew we were not going to be walking too long, because we could hear fighting. Fear the American troops are not far behind us. So the planes coming over bombing the city. So we walked a couple of days, and we crossed there was a little bridge we crossed, and that bridge was blown up. So our group was divided between one side of the bridge and the other side of the bridge. I was on one side where we were in a village, and that village there was a little forest. So they took us into the forest, and they asked for volunteers to take the sick people into the village and put them into the farmers, and told the volunteers to come back. And one of the volunteers was a friend of mine. And on the way back, they found a dead horse in the snow. So they cut off some pieces from the horse. And a friend of mine comes back with a piece of that meat. And he said, here's a piece, something, do something. So I made a fire and it was barbecue. Believe me, that was the best meal we had in a long time. And during the night, the guard disappeared. We didn't know until the next morning, where the German police came and they took us into that village and they disappeared. So after, that was about in the morning, and about around between 12 and 1 o'clock, I saw American tank just moved in, and we were liberated. When the American tank moved in, they closed up the village, but we didn't, there was a group of us, we didn't want to get closed in again. So we got through, broke through, and started to walk to see where the next town is. We walked a couple, maybe a kilometers or two, and there was a German bakery. So we got into the bakery, everybody got a bread, you had a bread, you were okay. And we were walking a little bit, and we come to the next town. And actually, when the American troops came into that village, they brought the people, the rest of the people, into that city. And there was a German Air Force base, so they made a DP camp, a displaced person camp there. But we didn't want to go to the camp, so we come to the city, and we saw there were 3 American soldiers walking, but they were so drunk, they were holding on to each other, they couldn't walk. They were Czechoslovakian descent. So when they saw us coming, I guess the clothes we were wearing, so they asked me, are you Polish? I said, yes. So I said, come on. And they took us into an underground bunker you couldn't see the end of. So the first thing, we changed clothes, put some fresh clothes on, and everybody got a backpack, put some food in, and then there was a big row of bicycles chained up, so they broke the chain, everybody got a bicycle. Now we're trying to find a place to stay. So we tried to get out of the street, you couldn't get out, it was after 6 o'clock. So we tried and hopped over some 3 or 4 fences, and we came to a German inn. And that inn was taken over by the American troops. In the back of the inn was an empty house, so we took over the house. We moved in there. So I lived in the house about 10 days, and they came out an order that anybody who lives outside the camp has to move into the camp. So we moved into the camp, we were taken back to Munich, which is, Munich was a big DP camp, but you could live at the camp or you were free. You can go any place you want to go. So a couple of friends of mine, myself, we stayed about 3 days at the camp, and then we decided to go back to the city of Landsberg, where it was camp number 7 was, to go back there. And Landsberg was one of the biggest DP camps. So we went to register, and the reason we went to register the camp, we went to other camps to register in case anybody of your family survived. So that's how they can find it. But we registered, you gave a room, I stayed overnight. Next morning, I moved out in the city about 7 kilometers to a farm, and I lived in the farmhouse. Lived in the farmhouse about 6 weeks. Then I decided to go back to Poland to find out if anybody in my family survived. I came back to Poland, went to the house, so I had some survivors living on the second floor, and the first floor was some Polish people, and they told me nobody in my immediate family, but a cousin of mine survived, and he's in a different town, and we grew up together in childhood. So they said he's in a different town, so I said I'm going to get him, and I'm going back to Germany, because in Poland it was very bad for survivors who came back. They killed a lot of survivors who came back, because when they took the Jews out, the Polish people moved into the houses. Now they didn't want to give up the houses, so they were killing a lot of survivors. So I went to get my cousin to go back to Germany on the train going, and I met a woman survivor. And I told her I'm going to get my cousin, I'm going back to Germany, so she begged me, please wait about 10 days. Her husband was a cap maker, so he had a little shop, so I want to liquidate, I want to go with you. So as you can see, right here, because I had papers in Germany, liberation papers, so that's why he said I want to go with you. So, okay, we come to the German, the Czechoslovakian border, they said you need a visa to go through Czechoslovakia. You need a visa. And in Krakow, Poland, there's a Czech consulate. You can get a visa there. So I went out, we got some pictures, and I went to Krakow, and I got a visa. And Czechoslovakia at that time was occupied by the Russians. So we got a visa, we got on the train, and we come to the German border. A Russian officer comes on the train, and he says, check the papers. And I showed him the paper. He said he had to go back to Prague, which is the capital of Czechoslovakia, and get a stamp. So to go back to get a stamp, where do you get a stamp? There was no government. It was a little over 2 months. Excuse me. Over 2 months, there was no government in Prague. So I said to them, let's go and try to go through Austria. So come to the Austrian border. They took us off the train, took away all the papers, and put us up for about 3 days. And they were getting together a group of representatives from all the European countries, and they was trying to send you back to country of birth. So the woman, she wasn't on the paper, she was my sister, a brother, and my cousin. They were my brother. So when she goes in to an interview, he didn't know. Yes, so he puts her on the list to go back to Poland, and he had to sign a piece of paper. Then I go in, and he asked me, where are you from? I said, Germany. What language do you speak? German. But your sister was here, and she signed the paper to go back to Poland. I said, she speaks German. She didn't understand what you were asking me. And on that paper, visa I had, they had a stamp from the Polish Red Cross. So I said to him, showed him, take a look, there's a stamp from the Polish Red Cross that I'm going home. So I showed it to the Polish representative. He said, yes, that's right. So took that piece of paper, crumpled it up, threw it away. So I said, well, my brothers don't have to come in. So they put us on a list to go back to Germany. We were 78 people taken off the train. So 22 were on the list to go to Germany. The rest of the people, I don't know what happened to them. So the next morning, a Russian guard took us to the border. We were right by the border. Took us over, they handed us over to the Austrian border guard, and that we should get on the train to go to Vienna. So we come to Vienna. Vienna was divided into 4 parts. You had the Russian, British, French, and American. To get to Germany, we had to be on the American side. So we had to go back to Salzburg, to the city of Salzburg. What is it's the city where if you saw the movie, the Sound of Munich was made. Sound of
Music.
Sound of Music was made. That city had to go back with train and cross the river and boat, and we come to the American side and rented a truck and went back to Germany. So we're back in Germany. So I still lived in Germany for 4 years after I was liberated, because you didn't have a passport, you couldn't go any place, except I could go back to Poland. So there for 4 years, and then finally Canada said that you can register, you can go to Canada. So I went to register, and it took a long time, we didn't hear anything. So the next thing was, I had a friend in my next village said, go, you can go to Munich, now you're registered to go to America. So I went and registered to America, didn't take long. I got a notice to go to see that, go through the American doctor, and go through the FBI, check you out, and you get a note that go to the port of Germany, Bremenhaven, and to get the boat to go to America. So I got the boat and I arrived in the United States on May 30th, 1949. And so here I am. I don't know if you have any time for questions. Have any questions?
All right, guys, we got time for like 2 questions. Really good. Anyone?
because all the evidence is still in existence, all the camps. You go to any camp, Auschwitz, Dachau, Majdanek, Treblinka, all the gas chambers are still in existence. And there are thousands of people are going visiting there every day. So don't listen to them. And another thing is, I've been always asked by a lot of kids at school, did you ever try to give up? You ever thought you should give up? Because I saw a lot of things where people ran to the electric fence to get electrocuted and so forth. I always told them, I never gave up because I didn't lose hope. Didn't lose hope, but didn't lose faith. I always said may have a bad day today, but I hope tomorrow will be a better day. So remember, don't ever give up.
So just, when you write your letter, you need to give it to your teacher, the teacher who's here, and then they will be giving it to, Gaffney, Miss Gaffney. And then Mr. Alexander will get your letters. So think about that. I'm not talking about 3 sentences. I'm talking about putting thought into it and keep being the best high school in California.
You guys, your teachers will give you more information about the letters further on.
Yes, you are my teacher. Tomorrow.
Homework.
Class. What about homework though?
Homework is posted in school, G. I just did it. Anything else, you guys? Any thoughts, comments?
I'm a scholar.
Yeah.
What happened? I can sip on it now.
So good. You see it? Yeah. That's how we live on shelves like this. And there was one section for 3 people. And I don't know if any of you have read any about the Elie Wiesel. He's a Nobel Prize winner, right? That's him right here. And some of the camps, these are the uniforms we were wearing.
Just say the only reason they're smiling is because
Yeah. See, the reason they were happy, they were smiling, was this is when they were liberated. This is my liberation from Dhaka. This one here. Okay. This is Auschwitz, and that's